Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program The Journey Begins. Yes, we have a name for the series finally. I thought it was quite fitting, a new series on a new channel and all that. And we are here on the launch pad with our Newton Mark II rocket. Let's get her into the air. Valentina Kerman at the controls for this one once again. Jeb had a couple of bites of the cherry last time, so I thought it'd be fair to give Valentina a second mission as well. Jeb back on Kerbin. He's getting a bit frantic by now. He desperately wants to get in on some of that space action, but you know, fair's fair. We'll have a job for him to do before too long. So we just stage those SRBs, throttle up the main engine. Trying to keep the speed fairly low to begin with. Don't want to get too much energy lost to that thick lower atmosphere. As we climb a bit higher, just start to pitch over now. So yes, the Newton Mark I rocket, named of course after Sir Isaac Newton. Interesting chap. Reckoned by some to be the greatest genius who ever lived, simply because of just how far he progressed those fields he was interested in. Virtually single-handedly invented the fields of modern mechanics and calculus, several major discoveries in the field of optics. Yeah, apparently not a very nice guy by all accounts. Had a bit of a set to with Robert Hooke. Is it Robert? I think it's Robert. Robert Hooke. He of elasticity fame. And then when Hooke died, Newton set about trying to destroy all vestiges of Hooke's legacy. And that. Our first stage burns out, so we fire up our second stage. Ooh, just getting a little wobble there, just try and get that. Behave yourself. There we go. So yes, just try to destroy Hooke's legacy, including, bizarrely enough, trying to destroy all the portraits that existed of him. So yeah, not a chap you want to disagree with, although as these super geniuses tend to be, not exactly gifted in the social skills department. Fire up our final stage and we push on into orbit. I'm going to aim for an initial apoapse of about 75,000. There we go. Let's just accelerate that. We go to 4 times time acceleration. Yes. Difference you may have noticed from last time is I do have Kerbal Engineer installed. It wasn't one of the ones I was intending to install, but I sort of realised that my normal way of playing the game is to continuously flip back and forth between the map view and the normal view, and I realised that's probably not the best viewing material, so I thought do this and I can just keep it on normal view for as long as possible and hopefully make for some more pleasant viewing. So we fire up that engine. We want to push ourselves onwards because we're not going for a normal orbit this time. We are going up to space high above Kerbin because we want to get that space high above Kerbin science. We are loaded with science experiments in this ship. You notice we have the new science juniors, our material studies bay, as well as our goo canisters and the rest of the normal science bric-a-brac we have on our capsule. Let's see, we're getting up to 200,000, and that should just about do us. Yes, but we are going to need that science. I'm going to take one of the materials bay experiments here, because we haven't done one in space near Kerbin before. We are going to need that science if we want to push onwards to... well, in a fit of narrative inconvenience, the moon isn't actually visible at the moment. Let's time accelerate round. We don't want to be stuck here forever. And as we come round, as the moon hoves into view, yes, that will be our objective for this episode. Maybe not well, definitely not to land on it, but to get close to it, to hug it and to squeeze it tight. And hopefully pick up the science from doing that, because we will be wanting to land on the moon, and more besides. So that should be space high over Kerbin now. Let's observe this materials bay. Yup, the high radiation environment caused a few of the samples to glow. It looks like it would be fun to paint the rocket with this. That reputation for materials glowing, of course, comes from the element radium. I think it's radium. But they discovered it and thought, oh, this glows. That'll be fun to paint everything with, and they did, and then hair and teeth started to fall out, and yeah, they realised it might not be such a good idea. Let's get our crew report, and then let's get Valentina out for her EVA, because she is going to have to do more than just a simple EVA. We need her to go and collect the samples from these material labs, because those samples are not coming back from us. Just flings herself off from the rocket. Yes, we are going to need to collect those, and we're going to need to do it one at a time, because a Kerbal can't carry two of the same experiment at once, or something like that. So we collect that from the second materials lab, and we get her back on board the rocket. Job done, I think. Done everything, yep. So let's get her pointing retrograde. Retrograde. And let's fire up that rocket. About 37, that should do it. And we are on our way home. Let's stage that. Yes, so time accelerate down into the darkness. This might not make for great viewing. I have turned up the ambient lighting for this, so it should be hopefully a slight improvement on what you might normally see. But we are back into the sunlight. Well, there's a stroke of luck. So I keep trying to orient the vessel so it looks a bit nicer, get a better visual, but I'm really not having much luck. Okay. But anyway, we are done. We have completed the science gathering part of our mission. Hopefully, it should be lots and lots of lovely science for us to turn into new parts and go out exploring more of this strange star system in which we find ourselves. I think... Where are we? I think, yeah, we're going to come up quite close to the Kerbal Space Center. I don't think we're going to drop back on it. I think that would have required a bit more planning, but yeah, looks like we are going to come down on the same continent at least. Sorry, just fiddling with the time accelerator there. No, we are going to come down, it looks like, into the oceans. So let's pop our parachute. And just watch as Valentina descends gently, gracefully almost, down into the wide blue ocean. Just going to decrease the time acceleration there. Still, as I said in the last episode, get a little nervy around time acceleration when it comes to sort of parachute deployment and all that. And that is that. Valentina Kerbin has returned triumphant from the biggest mission we've launched so far. Let's recover the vessel and see what bounty we have harvested. 140.5 science, giving us 156 in total. That will do very nicely. Now, because a good aerospace program isn't just about the space side of things, allegedly, we are here on the runway with our first aircraft. Yes, I've gone and filled out the fourth tier of the tech tree, and that gives us the basic plane parts. So I have thrown this together. This is the Sparrow. Not named after anyone famous. I'm not sure I can think of anyone famous called Sparrow. Jack Sparrow? No, anyway, this is a little science and exploration craft, and entirely unimaginatively, we're going to take its maiden voyage over to the KSC island. over there. And this hopefully will be the first in a long line of aircraft. Who knows, maybe one day we'll have a plane that can take us straight into space. A space plane, if you will, if you can wrap your head around such a concept. So here we are, just coming in for the landing. Totally not the 5th time I did it, because these initial landing gear are built like matchsticks. But not a terrible landing. And from here we park ourselves in a hangar and get to doing what we came here to do. That's grab more science. And after we've completed that, I've got one more thing I want to do, because when I went to university, we were very close to a disused airfield, and it had an old control tower there. And a tradition amongst university students was to break into the control tower and steal something as a bit of a memento of their time there. So I'm just going to get Jeb, in homage to that, just going to get Jeb to climb to the top of the control tower and see what he can see from there. Yeah, nothing to steal for a little souvenir, but hey-ho. And after that little jaunt, we still don't have quite enough science points to get us the parts we need. So we just run a few more flights, just in and around the KSC, just trying to squeeze the last of that science out of the surrounding areas. Here you can see a quick flight off to the highlands just east of the KSC. Managed to land that one successfully first time, which is nice. And we just park up and get the last of that science. Hopefully that'll be enough just to push us over the line and get those parts. Now if we want to go much further than Kerbin orbit, we are going to need our rocket designed to evolve. So here we are on the launch pad with the Darwin Mark 1. Do you see what I did there? Moving on. It's Jeb finally back at the controls. Seems to be delighted by the prospect. Finally going to space. Not just to space, but to fly out further and to visit Kerbin's closest natural satellite, the Moon. A few of you might be wondering why I've opted for the multi-copter design rather than the larger rocket parts, which surely must be available by now. It's because I like them. That's it and all about it. I just really like the way they look, especially sort of the larger multi-copter designs, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. But as our solid rocket boosters burn out, ditch those, fire up our 3 main engines, and there we are. Yes, the Darwin Mark 1, named of course after Charles Darwin. Got a job as a captain's mate aboard the HMS Beagle, spent 5 years on that voyage, and when he came back decided to write a book called On the Voyage of the Beagle, which sort of catapulted him to stardom. But he had an idea for another book, one that he sat on for, behave. Come on. Yeah, these multi-coupler designs aren't as stable as just the larger rocket designs. There we go. But I think it's a worthy trade-off for the sort of aesthetics. So yes, Darwin had an idea for a different book, one which he sat on for 20 years until someone sent him a letter saying, I've had an idea, I've been asking around, you seem to be the guy that most people seem to suggest, what do you think? At which point he realised, oh crap, I better publish. Because this was Alfred Russel Wallace, who'd come to pretty much exactly the same conclusions that he had. So how are we doing? How's our orbit doing? 30,000 metres, not bad. Get rid of the first stage, fire up the stage, and we are well on our way. Yeah, really not as well behaved, these multi-coupler designs, but as I said, I like them. Let's tilt over. Getting a bit of heating, that shouldn't be too much problem. Apoaps 55,000. Ooh, bit squirrely. Pointed at the horizon just for the last bit of the orbital burn. Try to get it to about 75,000, and there we are. Yep, looking pretty good. Darwin and Newton, who we discussed earlier, of course, I think they spent their sort of their most active years about 200 years apart from each other. But of course, things were a bit different in Darwin's time. I think the whole scientific process has become a lot more formalised, because doing science in Newton's time was weird. It wasn't unheard of. In fact, it was quite common for people who'd made major discoveries to sort of publish them in newspapers, but to publish them in code, and then sit on it for a while, and then make public their findings, just so no one could come along and say, "Oh, I've just thought of that as well." Newton, when he wrote his Principia, wrote it in deliberately impenetrable jargon. At the same time that Leibniz published his similar findings in much the same way. Hooke, Robert Hooke, who I talked about earlier, his favourite technique was to just publish his findings as anagrams. Yeah, weird time to do science. Anyway, we're getting near our apoapse now, so let's see. Just thrust right up. I get very OCD about my orbits. I really do like them to be circular, so you'll have to just bear with me for a second. Maybe I've gone a bit too early there. Bit too much there. I think we're going to get into a nice circular orbit there. Push the nose down a bit. See how well we can do. Yeah, that's circular-ish. So yes, so we have our orbit, and now it's just a case of pushing onto the moon. We are going to go for a free return trajectory, which is, for those of you who don't know what a free return trajectory is, instead of going for a direct insertion, like going round the back of the moon, you sort of come around the front of it and do a figure-of-8 orbit. And this is good because it means you just sort of come straight back in a pretty simple figure-of-8. So if something goes wrong when you finally reach the moon, your boosters don't fire or what have you, you just come straight back safely to the Earth, or to Kerbin in this case. And that's what all the Apollo missions used, including famously Apollo 13. So which turned out very handy for them. So to get a free return trajectory to the moon in Kerbal Space Program, you just want to get your apoapsis out to about 13,500 kilometers, and then just swing it round, and it should start to look something like that. What's our periapse? Yeah, that's okay. I'm not quite aligned. It wasn't a perfect launch, so my trajectory coming back isn't quite on the orbital plane. It's because when you go out on orbit around the moon, that whole thing tends to become a bit exaggerated. I've just realised I haven't ditched my second stage. I meant to do that a bit earlier so we don't get any space junk. We can come back and sort that out later. So let's just point ourselves at our manoeuvre node. Oop. Sorry, I've got persistent rotation on, so that was what caused me to spin out there. Let's just time accelerate round to it. I reckon there. Stage the engine and start our burn. And here we leave past me and go to 4 times time acceleration. This takes a little while, and the video is already running a lot longer than I would have liked, so you can see me here just trying to get that initial encounter with the moon, and then just trying to fiddle about with the orbit, just trying to get us down to about a 15-kilometer periapse. And with that done, we head on out. We slip the bonds of Kerbin and journey onwards to our rendezvous with the moon. So here we are at long last. The moon just hanging beautifully there in the background, and I think it's time to have a look at the bundle of goodies we've brought with us. Of course, we've got these two materials labs. I'll do one of those now, just whilst we're high over the moon. We've also got the mystery goo, two of those on the outside, and we have two more in this little service bay here, which also contains all the other science experiments, and as I said, another set of these mystery goo containers. This will be coming back with us. Hopefully won't make the return capsule too unstable. But we will at some point have to get out and collect all those other experiments. The reason why we've got two mystery goo containers here and two in here is because and why I'm having to do it one and one like that is, of course, you can only carry one of each unique biome experiment in the command module, so that's why that's set up like that. So, let's get the crew report from here, because we can only carry one of those, and we want an EVA report. Job done. We climb back on board, and now let's time accelerate until we're a little closer. 60 kilometers, I think, is the boundary for the moon. Nearly there. Job's a good one. Let's get all those experiments there. Beautiful. Lovely. Now, were these the ones? No, these are the ones we haven't done yet. Perfect. Now time to go out for another EVA report. 24 science. Beautiful. Now, the EVA reports are biome dependent, so as we fly around the back of the moon, we're going to want to pick up more of those. Midland craters. Let's get that one. Perfect. I think I'll probably do that in post-commentary, though, because it's probably going to be a bit long and tedious. So I will see you in a minute. And so we go to 4 times time acceleration, and you can see me here, just accelerating time until we're over a new biome, and then trying to decelerate time and get Jeb out as quickly as possible before we fly past the biome. And then realising we'd already flown past the biome, so getting Jeb back on board, and then suddenly realising we were back over the biome, so having to get him out again. Ugh. But eventually we do get a handful of EVA reports, and it's not too long before we're back out in space high over the moon, ready to make our final preparations for our journey home. So, with all that done, we have a couple of things we need to do. First of all, we need to make sure our course takes us back on a re-entry heading. Just going to fire prograde just to bring our periaps down. Going to aim for about 35 kilometers. I think that should be pretty much right on the money. 100. That'll do. The second, let's spin this round a little bit. We need to get those experiments that aren't coming back with us, so let's get Jeb out and get him with his little manoeuvring pack on. So, let's get up close and personal with this. Collect data. 2 down, 2 to go. And now, if Jeb will stop getting himself caught on those doors. Ooh. Move data. And now, just for that last mystery goo container. We fly out and around and back in. Ooh, come on. And we are back aboard with all our experiments, those that aren't coming back with us, safely stowed. We close that. And now we just wait for gravity to do its work and hopefully see us safe and sound back on the surface of Kerbin. And gravity does its job admirably, and before too long we are back at Kerbin. We ditch our service module, its function having been fulfilled, and we fly on down into the atmosphere of Kerbin. Having slipped its bonds earlier, we now crash back into them in a ball of superheated plasma. It would appear my fears about the service bay making the whole thing unstable were unfounded, and it just flies without incident back into the lower atmosphere. I did pack a couple of extra parachutes, some drogue chutes on this one. I just was wondering about the extra mass of the service bay. But it appears those fears were unfounded, and I probably could have done without them. So now we just float gently down into Kerbin's oceans, gently to a splash landing, and now we can go and inspect our haul. 444.5 science points, that's not bad at all, and we are going to go and fritter those away almost immediately. We start with the larger rocket parts, the better plane parts. We're going to avoid the sort of the miniaturization tech and the alternative command pods. We don't need those just yet. And so we're back here at the KSC with the moon hanging there in the night sky. Just as far away as it's always been, but somehow seeming a lot closer. Thanks for watching everybody, take care and I'll see you next time.